Okay, everybody, thank you so much for attending and welcome to our first ever Climate Careers Chat. My name is Max Chang and I'm going to be one of your moderators for tonight.
And my name is Brittany Stevens. Thank you all for coming to the Climate Careers Chat. We're both volunteers at SLIA and will be the moderators for tonight's panel. Next, a few of our SLIA committee members and our Climate Careers Chat producer will introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and helping support our new program. My name is Karen Rosenberg, and I'm a sophomore at Diablo Valley College. I currently serve as the director and chair of Sustainable Leaders in Action.
Hi everyone, my name is Courtney Sanchez. I'm a sophomore at Los Medanos College and I serve as a vice chair for Sustainable Leaders in Action.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first ever chat. My name is Gautam Sathasan. I'm the producer for today's event, in addition to the producer for Sustainable Contra Costa's Sustainability Live Series.
And before we begin the presentations, we're going to give you a brief overview of tonight's event.
So this is the agenda for tonight's event. So I'm going to just give you a brief overview of what we'll be doing. So first, we already had an introduction, and continuing on, we're going to get to know our panelists tonight, which is Kimberly Lam and Darren Deffner. They're our guests for tonight. And we'll let you know about when the Q&A, when to put questions in the chat. And we'll also have an introduction to both of our teams, SLIA and SCOCA. And also, tonight's panel is the first of a recurring series showcasing professionals in environmental or sustainably focused careers. This event is created and hosted by Sustainable Leaders in Action. SLIA is a youth-led volunteer organization based in Contra Costa County, California, that is focused on engaging and educating our community to live more sustainably.
With all the serious environmental issues we face today, education and action are more important than ever. We hope that this panel today can provide you with information that you can apply to your life, career, and anywhere else you can see it.
And again, thank you all for attending, and let's introduce today's panelists.
We created this panel to promote and showcase climate and sustainability-based careers. Today, we are joined by two professionals in environmental and sustainably-based work, Kimberly Lam and Darren Deffner.
Kimberly Lam is the Municipal Manager at Republic Services, and Darren Deffner is the Principal at PG&E. Let's begin with a little game of two truths and a lie to get to know our panelists better. There will be a poll on your screen momentarily, and you will have to try to guess which option is the truth.
And Kimberly, if you want to go over the options for your two truths and a lie.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So one of these is a lie. I drove a flatbed truck as part of one of my campus jobs in college. I had a 4.0 at UC Berkeley, and I met my husband on a group backpacking trip where no one showered for 5 days. All right, should I reveal the lie?
I think so.
Yep, everyone got it right. I guess I don't look like a 4.0 student, huh? I will, let's see, I did drive a flatbed truck as part of one of my jobs. I will talk about that in a couple minutes. I did meet my husband on a backpacking trip, and no one showered for a long time, so we set the standards pretty low for the rest of our relationship. And I did not have a 4.0 at UC Berkeley, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But great job, guys.
And next up, we have Darren's two truths and a lie.
Hey everyone, Darren Deffner here. I should have thought of one that involved 5 days of no showers, but here are the three that you get to choose from. So first, while I was at San Jose State University, I was flown to the Republican National Convention to represent the voice of college students impacted by proposed cuts in education funding. Second option is I used to do bit roles in Opera San Jose productions after I was done with my day job during those productions. Or third option is as part of a Surfrider Foundation fundraiser, I paddled my surfboard over 50 miles from Southern California around Catalina Island and back. So which one is a lie? All right, a few more seconds, I guess. All right, are we ready for the result?
Let's do it.
I fooled you guys. The first two are true. The third one, Surfrider Foundation fundraiser, I did not paddle around Catalina Island.
Okay, now that we have gotten to know our panelists a little better, let's begin with Kimberly's presentation. If the audience has any questions during her presentation, please put them in the chat room to be answered later during our Q&A session. Please include whether your question is for Kimberly, Darren, or both.
All right. Can everyone see my screen? All right. Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Lam, and I am so excited to be here today. When people ask me what I do, I joke that I'm a dumpster diver, so here's a photo to prove it. But I first wanted to talk about how I got to my current role at Republic Services. So I grew up here in Walnut Creek, actually, and my family went to, we spent a lot of time outdoors, and I think that's where I developed my love of nature. In middle school, I was involved in our environmentally concerned kids club. In high school, we actually didn't have an environmental club, so I didn't think to start one, but got back to the environmental field in college. I went to UC Berkeley, so I didn't travel too far, and I had a great time there. When I started at UC Berkeley, I thought I wanted to major in environmental economics and policy. So that's what I went in as, and I was excited about that until I took my first environmental economics and policy class, and I realized that that was not for me. So luckily, a lot of the bigger schools are split up into smaller colleges. So at UC Berkeley, they have a College of Natural Resources, which is where all of the different environmental majors are grouped together. And the nice thing about that is a lot of the prerequisites for graduating are shared. A lot of them are the same, you know, chemistry, biology, things like that. And so it's pretty easy to get a taste for a lot of the different majors to figure out what I wanted to do. So the orange dots represent different majors where I took classes in to figure out what I wanted to do. And I ended up graduating with a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Sciences. And one thing that I really enjoyed were my classes, not just for the material that I learned, but also for really just figuring out what I liked and what I didn't like. There's such a wide variety of classes in the environmental field. It's such a broad, you know, type of major. And so I took classes in geology. I took an architecture and daylighting class. I did a senior project on the effects of petroleum on native plants and bioremediation. And through all of these and a lot of other classes, I was able to figure out, you know, what types of classes I liked, what types I didn't, and in the end kind of narrow down what I wanted to major in. I also spent a couple summers doing all sorts of very different things in the environmental field. The first summer in college, I just went back home and actually was a camp counselor for a summer, but starting the summer after, I tried to do something that would help kind of inform me, you know, whether I wanted to go to graduate school or, you know, did I want to do field work? Did I want to do something more in the biology field? And so the second summer, I was in a lab for agroecology with a professor studying cover crops in vineyards. And the effects that that had on the natural predator and also regular pests in the vineyards. So I got to learn a lot about what postgraduate students do, how research works, how it's funded, and that was a really great opportunity to meet a lot of people and have some fun in Napa and Sonoma. The summer after my third year, I actually spent in Minnesota. I applied to the National Science Foundation's Research Experience for Undergrads program. And at that point in my college life, I thought I might be interested in fisheries and fish ecology. So I spent a summer doing some research with fish in lakes in Minnesota. And from that, had a lot of fun, really loved the Midwest, and realized I was not really into fish ecology. So that was valuable in itself, just realizing that before I went further into that discipline. For me, it wasn't so much the classes that I really focused on as you guessed my lie. I did not have a 4.0. I did well in classes, but I spent most of my efforts in my focus and passion in my extracurriculars in college. And college is a great time to get involved in so many different clubs and classes and internships. I did a couple internships that were unpaid. I did some that were paid. I had various campus jobs. One of them involved driving a flatbed truck. That was part of the reuse program. So I ended up managing this club that the focus was on promoting reuse through campus. So whether that was working with the sororities and fraternities on different programs, with building staff, they were going to demolish a building, so we worked on some programs there. All of these different extracurriculars really helped me hone my public speaking skills, my organizational skills, time management, communication skills, and just program implementation, which for me were the most valuable really out of college, more so than telling a potential employer that I took fish ecology or a chemistry. So this was really where I met a lot of friends and made a lot of good contacts as well. So then I graduated, very exciting, except I did not have a full-time job lined up after college. One of the tough things for me to wrap my head around was that for the environmental field, a lot of the companies that are hiring don't hire on a very set schedule. So, my friends that were in finance or engineering, a lot of the big companies hiring for those majors had a very scheduled, routine every year. They would start interviewing around a certain time, second round interviews at a certain time, offers would be out at a certain time. And so that was very predictable for them. But for the environmental science major, it's just kind of sporadic. It depends really when a job opens up. If someone leaves and a position is open, then that's when they hire. So that's tough when you are graduating and everyone's asking you, oh, where are you going to work next year? What are you going to do? For me, it was, I am not sure. And I'm still exploring. So after I graduated, I did have a couple part-time jobs and internships that I kind of hobbled together to keep myself busy and to continue to be productive while I looked for a full-time job. So I worked for UC Berkeley, helping them to write their zero waste plan the summer after I graduated. I also had a part-time contract position with Levi Strauss in San Francisco, looking at green chemistry, doing some research there that was about 25 hours a week. And then, I spent a lot of time volunteering as well. I got involved with Sustainable Contra Costa, which I'm currently a board member of. And I also, with a friend, helped to start the Zero Waste Youth Convergence, which is now an annual event. And because I had a lot of time and flexibility with, no full-time job, I was able to really pour my heart into that and organize that during that time. I also spent a lot of time getting coffee with people, being kind of intentional with reaching out to people that were in the sustainability field. And specifically for me, I was really interested in waste. So I set up a lot of coffee dates with people in the waste industry. And that was a really great experience for me, getting to talk to people who've been in their roles for many years to get their perspective, learn about the projects that they were working on, and also tell them a little bit about myself and, get my name out there. And that was really helpful. So I applied to lots of jobs all over the Bay Area, some outside of the Bay Area. And I was really excited to take my first full-time role as a recycling coordinator with Republic Services, which is one of our large garbage and recycling hauler here in the Bay Area and actually across the US. This role was a really great one for me because it involved a lot of outreach and communication and working with hundreds of businesses in central Contra Costa County to make sure that they had the right recycling and composting and waste diversion programs in place. I met a lot of great coworkers, a lot of great staff, got experience, hosting trainings for hospital staff here in this photo, with building custodians, with teachers at schools, all sorts of different audiences, which is really great for my public speaking. And since I've been a recycling coordinator, our team was pretty big. We had 6 people, and a lot of people in this role stay on for many, many years. Some of my coworkers there have been there for 10 or more years. And then others have gone on to different jobs with the city or with the county, with different private companies, some with nonprofits. So it was a great kind of launching role for me. And then recently, a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to apply for a municipal manager role. And so in that role, I helped manage our contracts with a couple cities in Contra Costa County, overseeing recycling, composting, and even just our regular services for residential customers, multifamily, and commercial customers. It's been really exciting and interesting being in this role, especially this past spring with COVID. It's been really fun getting to play a part in the community during this tough time. We've launched different programs with our drivers and providing meals while supporting local small businesses that are hurting. And so this has been a really fun role for me. I've been in this role for a couple of years now, and it's been great. We currently have a team now of 8 recycling coordinators. I oversee half of them. And we are getting great applications for those open positions when they open up, but they are all very diverse. So it's not all applicants from the same major. A lot of them come from different types of backgrounds. And really what we look for is the type of work experience that you have and the skills that you have, not so much your degree or your GPA or anything like that. So with that, that's a little bit about me and my background, how I got to where I'm at in my career. And I'd be happy to answer questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. That was an excellent presentation.
I'm sure the audience has some great questions they want to ask you, just as I do, but we'll save those for the Q&A session at the end of today's panel. If you do have any questions, again, feel free to type them in the chat at any time. Right now we're going to have a short 3-minute break in case anyone needs to get up and move around. During the break, we'll have a slide about the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge of the Month, as you can see on your screen right now, which is eating lower down the food chain. If you want to take part in the action, visit the link in the next slide.
So again, I hope that that presentation gave you a little insight on just one of the many careers in sustainability. Now I wanted to give a quick overview of the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge. This is an amazing free online platform that allows Contra Costa County residents to track their emissions, compete in teams, and engage in community groups by taking actions that help promote a more sustainable lifestyle. Through various actions, such as the one shown, you can not only save money, but reduce your footprint. This month, we are highlighting eating lower down the carbon chain. Feel free to check out the link on the screen or in the chat box for more information during our break.
We'll see everyone back in 3 minutes with the presentation from Darren Deffner, principal at PG&E. See you all soon. Alright, everybody, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your break. Up next is a presentation by Darren Deffner. Don't forget to include your questions in the chat box and who they are addressed to.
Hey everyone, Darren Deffner here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Can anyone verify you can see it? No?
I can't.
We're good now.
Oh, you can see it now? Sorry, you can see my screen now?
Yeah,
All
we
right.
can see your screen.
All right. Well, my title screen should be up here called Confronting the New Normal. You would think that a title slide would be one of the more minimal slides as part of a presentation. For whatever reason, it took me a while to figure out what to put on the title screen, because I thought to myself, you know, I've had, you know, a number of jobs in my career. I'm hoping that there will be some insights that will resonate with everyone as part of this panel, and some of it might not resonate. But when I was thinking about kind of where we're at in the world, we have this new normal of, you know, climate change and seeing how, you know, the wildfires and these heat events and just everything that seems to be ever increasing, which, you know, I think we're all trying to deal with, but especially if you're in high school or in college and you're trying to figure out not only how do we respond to these big events as part of the new normal, but, you know, how do you actually make a living doing something as well that aligns with your values on these levels. So again, hopefully part of my experience resonates with folks, and happy to you know, share what I can during the Q&A as well. You know, more than anything, before we kind of jump into stuff, I really wanted to thank all of you for, one, if you're part of the Sustainable Leaders in Action group, it's been awesome working with you guys to put this together. You've been doing the heavy lifting to put this together. So thank you for that. This is really awesome. And for all of you who are just joining, you know, thank you for just, you know, your passion for sustainability and trying to see how can you align your passion for sustainability with a career, with upcoming jobs. You know, I put up this quote of, you know, oops, as I move back there, I cannot, you know, do all the good that the world needs, but, you know, I can certainly do, you know, good that can help the world. And I think for me, that's been a thread through a lot of my jobs is, you know, I don't think I've ever had a job where I felt like I'm saving the world with this one job, but I was a part of something that was making a difference. And I think for me, that's always, you know, led me to the various experiences that I've had. So I'll give you a taste of kind of where at least for me, where my interest in sustainability began and kind of where it's gone over the years. It really did begin in high school. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Model United Nations. I grew up in Southern California. I'm not sure how relevant that is up here, but it's kind of like debate club, but you represent a country and you have to, in a sense, become an expert on certain issues that will be debated at the conference. And you have to represent the perspective of that country. And I tended to lean toward the United Nations Environmental Program, that committee, and really got exposed to so many different environmental issues in the world that, at least when I was learning about it, it felt like there were so many common sense solutions that we should be able to do to deal with deforestation and, you know, ocean pollution and a lot of the things that were being talked about at these conferences, that it really just drove me to want to find some type of job or a career where I could actually be part of the solution for that. Originally, when I was in high school, I had kind of my creative outlet was photography. I loved the landscapes of like Ansel Adams and all of the folks who were taking these nature photos. And I thought, you know, as I learned about it and saw how photography in the early days of the medium had really made a difference in terms of the national park system being created, and you know, wildlife preservation. A lot of the major environmental laws from over 100 years ago were driven because photographers would take these very scenic photos and bring it to Congress and show them what would be protected, because you know, obviously people weren't traveling as much back then. I guess kind of like where we're at right now, remotely with COVID, but back then you didn't see a lot of wilderness as easy as we do today. So for me, I thought, man, what an amazing career that would be, and I can express my passion for photography, but also how to preserve nature. So I went off to college with that in mind. I went to a community college in Southern California that kind of majoring in photography, really getting steeped in that. Founded the environmental club at the college and worked at the campus recycling center when I was there to earn a little bit of money. And through all of those things, I was meeting a lot of people and again, learning more about you know, various environmental issues at the time, which really allowed me to look at being able to learn about those issues in college and being exposed to a whole bunch of people through the various things that I was doing really led me to future options that I ultimately would get exposed to and ultimately became jobs that I did. I transferred from Orange Coast College to San Jose State University and decided to do a study abroad program in England, where I ended up working for a member of parliament as part of that program. And then I interned with Friends of the Earth Scotland that summer. And that kind of began a transition for me. I moved away from thinking that I'd become a photographer and having that as my outlet for environmental causes, to really becoming more directly involved with advocacy and policy, government policy, seeing how that was being implemented in England. I came back with that passion for politics and established the College Democrat Club at San Jose State at the time, and got involved with local campaigns, you know, for city council, and really it changed the way I thought about you know, what type of jobs and careers I would want. And so I graduated with a political science degree with an environmental studies minor, and decided I was just going to hop in a car and drive cross country and, you know, save the world working in Congress. I kind of felt like if Congress could pass laws that applied across the board to all 50 states in terms of environmental protection, why not be involved with that? So I drove cross country. I spent a lot of time networking because I didn't know anything of how to get a job on Capitol Hill. And it really was talking to a whole bunch of people, okay, kind of like what Kimberly said, with having a lot of coffees with people. And through that, I got exposed to a unpaid internship, which I took, that helped lead me to the paid jobs that I ultimately got working for members of Congress for a number of years. It was hard. It took a number of months and a lot of networking, and I really had to save money and took odd jobs to be able to continue, you know, trying to get a job, a paid job in Congress, because it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But through all that effort and kind of preparation, I ultimately was able to get a job there, and then had that as part of my career. So this is kind of midway through my overall career, and you've seen me kind of highlight a few of these different things of where I've been and why I moved in certain places. So to England, back to San Jose, to Washington, DC, to working years there. I moved back to the Bay Area when a former professor of mine won a city council race, and he wanted me to be his chief of staff. So I moved back for that and did that for a few years. But kind of the itching for environmental and energy issues was calling me. And there was a job at PG&E, at Pacific Gas and Electric, in local government relations that I felt like would get me back into, you know, being more directly involved with environmental issues and energy issues. So I got that job, which was an amazing job. It really allowed me to be directly involved in the community, building a lot of partnerships, you know, working with nonprofits on kind of what initiatives, you know, energy and environmental initiatives that could be supported in the community. Really enjoyed that, but PG&E decided that with my experience of having worked in Congress before, and this is when Barack Obama was elected, that there was going to be a lot of environmental legislation that needed assistance then. So I moved back to Washington, D.C. with PG&E at this time and worked on federal energy legislation. There was a lot of talk at the time of trying to establish a national renewable energy target. There was a cap and trade bill that would, you know, cap the amount of carbon pollution that is emitted, and then you have permits that draw that down over time with various industries. So a lot of movement on energy policy at the time. But after a few years, I again kind of got that itch to move on to something else, and I moved back to California again, but this time I left PG&E and I worked for a group called the Solar Electric Power Association, which is a energy solar-driven educational nonprofit, and I became their policy director for a few years back in California. But again, I tend to have this every few years kind of movement, it seems. I again was called back to PG&E. They had a role on the rooftop solar team at PG&E that I really felt like, you know, that really is gonna that's gonna really drive a lot of positive movement in California, I felt. And I felt like getting back to PG&E to work on those issues was pretty critical. So I took that job, and that kind of brings me to what I've been doing for the last few years at PG&E. You know, the specialization that I got with a lot of those jobs and additional knowledge really kind of got me to a level where I could be a lot more directly involved with those issues in the state of California as the state tries to grapple with climate change and to really drive positive action on clean energy. And so you can see some of what I've been doing for the last few years, last 6 or 7 years or so. I've been on these teams focused on rooftop solar. I'm now on an energy storage team. And a lot of the work that I do, but I'll broaden it to the overall team, because it's a small, I'll call it a small but mighty team. There's about 40, 50 of us within PG&E that are all working on these technologies and issues that will define how electricity is provided to, you know, the customers, residents and businesses in Central Northern California where PG&E serves, in a cleaner way, right? The idea is that we decarbonize the grid to really make progress on climate change, and put in these advanced technologies that are kind of relatively new, but are needed to drive that change. And so whether you're installing solar on your roof, you have possibly an energy storage system in your garage that you can, you know, that you're linked to as well. You have an electric vehicle, you know, in integrating that, but then dealing with all the, you know, the wildfire threat and you know, climate change and integrating additional forms of clean energy. That's what this team works on. And it's been pretty awesome to be a part of that. You know, my strengths is more on the coalition building side and trying to work with different stakeholders, different parties that all are, you know, care about the same issues, but have different perspectives, and, you know, how can we align and come together to make progress? So that's what I've been doing for the last few years, and it's been pretty fulfilling. But, you know, as I look at kind of everything I've done and what's worked, what hasn't, you know, rarely out before I did it. You know, it's kind of a leap of faith, but I feel like volunteering, whether that's on the advocacy side, whether it's getting additional education, you know, the student organizations that I was part of in high school and college, doing things like, you know, I'm also on the board of Sustainable Contra Costa, like Kimberly, like all of these things provide you an outlet to, one, try to make a difference, you know, because you're actively working on issues, but also being able to meet others and kind of join forces to make a bigger change. So, you know, way back when I was first entering the workforce, I really had no idea if I was making the right move or not, but I just kind of, you know, trusted that by working hard and kind of just getting into, you know, something that I felt like was a good fit, that I would learn a lot. And if it ended up not working, then I could move on to something else. And if it worked, awesome. That's great too. Now I found, and you kind of see in this lower right-hand corner, I feel like this is kind of a tangent point for my overall, you know, presentation here of what I've done in my career, but I'm firmly a believer in really understanding your strengths. And some of you may be familiar with different assessments like the Myers-Briggs assessment, or there's a free online one called 16 Personalities. I'm a huge fan of, and it's in a book, it's probably online too, as everything, called Strengths Finder. And I found that the jobs that I've enjoyed the most and that I've been most valuable, and I think also how I got the job in the first place, because I was able to explain how my strengths fit that job, really came out of having an understanding of kind of who I am as a person, how do I think, how do I respond to things, and what are my strengths. So, you know, you could be a very, you know, extroverted, sociable person who really hates to get into, you know, the deep parts of topics, and those are your strengths, right? And if you align that with jobs that you're looking to do or experiences that you could do to then, you know, whether it's an internship or, you know, whatever you're doing, you know, like volunteering for you know, an organization, and you kind of using your strengths in that forum, all of it then can, I think, later translate to, you know, getting a job that really fits you as a person. So I've kind of taken that to heart and really looked at, you know, projects, teams, and jobs of, you know, how does it fit with the strengths that I could provide, and, you know, being able to provide value. So this is my last slide. As I thought about all of this, like literally all of us as part of this panel, I'm speaking now, but everyone has your own experience. And if we all have this passion for sustainability and kind of making progress on environmental issues, all of us kind of together are going to bring those different strengths, right? And so if we combine those efforts together, I think that's really where we're going to make progress. And you'll find, I think also within the workforce, you'll have a better experience with the various teams and people that you have to work with by kind of aligning those strengths together to collaborate and move forward on these issues. So with that, I will end, and happy to jump into the Q&A.
Thank you, Darren. That was a great presentation. And now, everybody, it's time for our audience Q&A session. Please ask any questions you have for Kimberly and Darren in the chat box if you've not done so already. The moderators will be looking through the chat during our Q&A session for questions from the audience to ask Kimberly and Darren. Please remember to include whether your question is for Kimberly, Darren, or both. And actually, I already see a few. And the first one looks like it's for Kimberly, saying, do you have any tips for applying to internships?
Yeah, let's see, apply to a lot, and but also be flexible with what you're looking for and what you are willing to consider. Like I mentioned, I did all sorts of very random internships that were really useful for me. And I think, if you don't have classes that are necessarily relevant to the internship, maybe you can highlight some volunteer work that you've done that, showcase some of the skills that would be relevant for the internship. When I was in college, I worked a lot with my college advisor, who was kind of the pipeline for a lot of internships, part-time jobs, things like that. So for me, it was, just being open and flexible and applying to a lot of things.
Here's a question from Alexi. What was your greatest disappointment and setback of your career? And I'd like to ask, how did you recover from it?
Is that to both of us?
Yeah, that's for both.
Darren, you want to go first? Let me think about my biggest disappointment.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, biggest disappointment. I think my biggest disappointment was when I was working at the Solar Electric Power Association. It was a national organization doing a lot of great work, doing a lot of amazing work, but it started to kind of disconnect me from kind of the local partnerships and coalitions that I had done in previous jobs, and it just became a lot harder of a job when it was at such a high level, if you will. And so ultimately that was a part of my decision making from when I moved on, was to find something that would get me back into what I felt like I did best and what I was most passionate about, which was kind of the direct relationships on the ground in a local area that really could build kind of the partnerships and initiatives that I really felt like was driving change in the community. So that's how I dealt with it at the time.
All right. For me, not necessarily disappointment, but a very, I guess, sobering moments for me have been now working on kind of the operational side of a garbage and recycling company, is seeing kind of the back end of everything that has to go into something as simple as a recycling program. In college, it was easy for me to just think, oh yeah, everyone should recycle, everyone should compost, it's so easy, why isn't everyone sorting it correctly, and we should just put green and blue bins everywhere. But getting to work now on for the actual company that has to pick everything up, it's been an eye-opener to see everything that has to go into just picking up compost and picking up recycling. And so it's a great experience to understand all the different moving parts in that process.
Thank you. And here's a question for Kimberly from Aaron Wong. At Republic Services, can plastics such as ABS, ASA, PELA be recycled, and at what efficiency? If it can be recycled profitably, how can the efficiency of the recycling process be increased? Would more funding and research scaling up this recycling or political lobbying to bring in more attention and more favorable laws help?
Yeah, it's a great question. I replied in a chat to him, but I'll just highlight a little bit of my response. Yeah, plastics are a really tough material, especially PLA, which is what is commonly labeled as compostable plastic. A lot of times it's the cups with the green stripe, or taterware forks, things like that. The green dog poop bags. For us, it's a really tough material to deal with because with our traditional recycling, sorting, and processing, it doesn't behave like a regular plastic, but it also doesn't compost fast enough and fully for for the way that we're composting municipal organics. So it's a tough material for us, as is polystyrene or styrofoam and some other types of plastic. There's a lot of issues that we're dealing with plastic packaging that's coming out. A lot of products slap a recycling symbol on their packaging and everyone just assumes it's fine in the blue bin. And it's tough when a lot of the different types of materials are all stuck together. If it's not one true type of material, then it would require dismantling and further sorting. Even better is to, if we can avoid plastic, go reusable. Of course, a lot of cities are now implementing or looking at implementing different regulations around disposable plastic. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, especially now with the pandemic. And I know some people are concerned about reusables, but there's been a lot of research that shows reusable bags and reusable cups and things like that are still safe. Yeah, there's a lot behind plastic.
And this next question is for Darren from NOAA. What are your thoughts on the Green New Deal?
Green New Deal. Well, that's pretty big. There's a lot to cover on that. I think what I found to be interesting is when the Green New Deal first came out, as often happens in politics, it gets synthesized down, and attacked, let's be honest, with just a couple of bullet points that, attempt to really take away the complexity of what would be major legislation and, simplify it down into something that, obviously different sides are going to have different perspectives on. I think the heart of the Green New Deal is where we need to be in terms of like, how do you create that new economy? So, the title of my slide of, confronting the new normal is not just about any one issue, right? There's so many things. I was highlighting the how climate change is vastly changing California in so many different ways, but that it extends to things that include the economy. Like, how do you create a green new economy? So I think the individual parts of the Green New Deal hopefully get there. Hopefully we can actually have a true conversation on how to package what needs to get done to transform the economy, which includes the electric sector, which includes the transportation sector, which includes industrial, and what do we do at our house? What do we purchase? Like, everything in totality is put into this Green New Deal. I think having that conversation, which hopefully happens after the next election, is where we can, make some progress. I think us being in the time of COVID and this fundamental shift of how we live our lives and how the economy functions, if there's any silver lining at all, maybe silver lining is not the right word, but if there's any opportunity that can come out of the current crisis, it's that we can have this conversation on how to transform the economy, which is, the Green New Deal is attempting to do as part of that legislative package. So it's the conversation we need to be having. Not sure if that answered the question, but that's what it made me think of.
Oh, thank you. And this next question is for both presenters. A few people have asked about it. Do you have any advice for someone who has already graduated college or maybe graduating soon? Any advice on how they can find work, and especially during the time of the pandemic, and maybe even for someone who doesn't have a related major and wants to get into sustainability work?
I'll go first. Yeah, I think, let's see, well, during COVID, it'd be hard to do in-person coffee chats, but maybe Zoom or LinkedIn could be good tools. I will say for LinkedIn, personally, I try to keep the connections there pretty genuine. I wouldn't go automatically just trying to connect with 100 people in your field that you don't actually know or have made any connection to. But it could be a good way, you know, to start with some people that you know and ask them, you know, hey, I'm really interested in this. I want to get involved. Do you have any connections you could connect me with locally that I could talk to? Something like that would be good. And then really volunteering is a great way to get your feet wet as well. One of the ways that I found out about my recycling coordinator position was through volunteering. One of the fellow volunteers in Sustainable Contra Costa, through their day job, knew someone that had previously been in my position. And so just through different connections like that over time, I think really help you know, get your foot in the door. And even, as I mentioned, with some of our open positions, we have people apply who don't have environmental degrees. And if we can see from their resume that they have relevant work experience, you know, if they have done education, maybe not about environmental, you know, themes, but about something else, and they're really passionate and they're great communicators, we, you know, will often overlook the specific major.
Yeah, I would echo what Kimberly just said. I think it's just the more you can get yourself out there, the better. And so, you know, again, I think if you're in high school, in college, you know, being able to tap the networks that are naturally there, you know, if you're part of a club there, even in the classes that you have, if there's a good professor, a good teacher, I know for me, a lot of my early jobs came as a result of networking that was either directly with like the chair of the department or people that they knew, or were an extension of folks that I had met with just the volunteer and social club, or the clubs that I had been a member of. I think part of the question though was like a little bit later in you know, like late 20s. I absolutely agree with kind of how Kimberly was highlighting. You know, you don't have to necessarily have the perfect resume of like the exact jobs that would be a stepping stone to maybe something that you're really interested in doing. It's how are you looking at the strengths and the skills that you have that meets the needs of what it is that you might be now identifying as something that you're interested in doing or more passionate about. I think being able to you know, have the network out there and folks that know that you're looking for something in particular is exactly what you should be doing. And, you know, I think getting your foot in the door, you know, you don't necessarily have to get the perfect job, quote unquote. You know, if now you've identified like, I have this passion for this particular part of sustainability, it may take you know, baby steps to ultimately get to what is the quote unquote perfect job, right? But just kind of getting your foot in the door is a good start.
Thank you, Darren. And the next question is from Catherine for Kimberly. She asks if new packaging alternatives like SCOBY or SCOBY eventually become mass produced, do you have an idea for what the future of recycling will be?
I don't know exactly what the future will look like, but I know for us, oftentimes we feel like we're kind of playing catch up with a lot of the new packaging that comes out. Like I mentioned, things are, you know, labeled with all sorts of labels, compostable or recyclable, and a lot of times it depends though on the recycling facility that your recyclable materials are sent to. If they are running on machines that are 15 years old and don't have the technology to be able to properly and efficiently sort, you know, that new type of packaging that is being developed, then it might be a great idea, but logistically, there may be some other steps that need to be put in place first for the sorting side of it, or even, you know, the processing, and then are there markets for it too? Depending on the type of material, you know, with the China sword a couple of years ago, that was China basically refusing all of our recyclables that we used to send there. That really shook up the recycling markets and really changed at least from our end, how we look at recycling and what is clean enough for recycling, how things need to be sorted, what really is worth it to recycle. And it caused a lot of panic and confusion, but also I think put a lot of focus on, the US needing to maybe deal with our own recycling, maybe in country, with our own facilities, or maybe thinking about how to reduce packaging in general. So it's really exciting to see new types of packaging coming out, made from mushrooms and other innovative materials. We just need to make sure it will work in the end, however it's getting collected, or maybe it's something that people can compost on their own in their backyard. That would be even better and a more localized solution.
Okay, and if we can just squeeze one more question in, this one's for Darren from Aaron Wong. Does PG&E have a plan to run California on fully renewable energy? And if so, how would that look?
Fully renewable energy. I'll answer it. So the decarbonization effort is fully underway. There is a target to have 100% decarbonized electricity by 2045. PG&E is well on its way. I think last year, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was about 80% of electricity sources were non-carbon emitting sources as part of PG&E's grid. That fluctuates depending on, PG&E is a large hydro, has over 100 different hydroelectric plants. So in dry years that goes down. But in terms of, if we're talking explicit renewable energy sources, we're getting there, and I would encourage anyone who is interested in personally, utilizing renewable energy. There's a lot of great resources on how to go solar, and whether that's literally putting, solar panels up on your rooftop, or if you're a renter and you don't literally own a roof, you can sign up for something that's called community solar. And there's a PG&E program. I know that a lot of there's a community choice aggregators, which is another delivery method for electricity in terms of who purchases electricity in your community. PG&E and CCAs both have these options where you can sign up for 100% renewable energy that meets your needs, that meets your whatever you use is that you personally as an individual consumer can purchase 100% coming from renewable energy sources. So like I have signed up myself for PG&E's Solar Choice program, and that's the one that I use. And again, there's other options available from other providers. So individuals can always take that action immediately. The grid is becoming greener and greener every year, which is pretty awesome when you consider that we can plug in our electric vehicles and power them up with clean energy resources. I think that's pretty exciting time to be involved in this particular part of the industry.
Okay, so actually we do have a bit more time, and this is actually a follow-up question for Darren about the Green New Deal from Noah. Noah says, do you think the deal is feasible? Noah fears that it would be detrimental economically if implemented. Yeah,
so again, I hopefully understood that these are my own personal opinions. I'm not speaking on behalf of PG&E or anything for that. I think if we're talking politically on the feasibility of the Green New Deal as is, I think it's highly unlikely, given kind of a polarized nation, polarized electorate, which ultimately results in polarized Congress. It's the term itself, I think, has already the term even just when you say Green New Deal, right? People immediately start having a reaction to it, even if they kind of, no matter what level of understanding they have of the components that are within the Green New Deal. I think if we rephrase the question just slightly to say, you know, let's break apart those big components that are within the legislation, and that certainly involves kind of environmental justice issues, clean energy issues. It also talks about just kind of the green economy issues. We're going to need a comprehensive approach to get out of the current crisis. It, again, can be defined a variety of ways, but I think we're all kind of feeling the weight of everything that's going on around us right now. And I think a comprehensive approach can involve many of the parts that are within the Green New Deal, but that specific legislation is highly unlikely to pass. But it's not to say that we can't make progress.
Here's a question from Veronica for both of you. What majors do some of your coworkers have, and what majors would be useful in your fields? And also, if you can mention specific schools, that'd be great.
I'll go first. Let's see. Our team has a lot of very different majors. Some have more of the public policy side. There's some, environmental science type majors. But I think some even have totally unrelated majors that are not necessarily sustainable or environmental in the name. But like I mentioned, because they had relevant work experience and were able to communicate how those would transfer over, we still, were able to add them to the team. In terms of schools, also wide variety, state schools, UCs, private. I guess to reverse that question, people in my environmental science major for my graduating class went on to do a wide variety of things. So in that sense, it's also not limited. I have some classmates that had gone on to med school, some that went on to get their master's or their PhD in various sciences. One started a nonprofit around research in drinking water and sanitation in developing countries. Others went to more on the energy side. Some are teachers now. Some work in city and local government. So I think it's just a wide variety. And some do stuff that's totally not environment related. But I think the major provided a good foundation for a lot of other things.
Yeah, I guess I'll answer that question by saying, well, a couple of different ways. So again, the team that I'm on, which is called Grid Integration and Innovation, fancy way of saying all of those kind of advanced technologies that I mentioned earlier, in terms of electric vehicles, batteries, rooftop solar. You'd probably guess correctly. We have a number of folks who had engineering a focus. PG&E has an MBA partnership with some of the local universities, so there's kind of that business component for some of the jobs. I know a number of folks have gone through, I forget the formal title, but it's like the Presidio School of Sustainability. Again, forgive me for not maybe remembering the exact title, but I think it's pretty close to that. A number of folks had gone through that program. For whatever reason, we have a number of people that came from the East Coast, from Duke and University of North Carolina, in kind of technical types of degrees there, or public policy degrees. So those are some of the majors that I've seen for our team. Again, kind of more technical based. My roles have been a little bit more specialized, so I gave you my history of jobs, but I wouldn't say that most people are like me, at least on the team that I'm currently on. But there's a part of me that I know when when I was graduating high school, when I was in college, I focused a lot of time and attention on like, I have to have the perfect degree with the, you know, the right major. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get any jobs within this entire field. And it turned out to be a lot less important on what major I had. It's certainly relevant. I mean, you know, if I had a physical education degree, I'm not going to become an engineer. You know, there was, you know, some commonality, some alignment, but I feel like, you know, especially after, you know, some of the first few jobs that someone has, and this certainly applied to me, you start showing your skills and you start showing your knowledge through those jobs, those experiences versus what your major was, you know, on the degree that you had. But again, to answer the literal question, we do have a lot of technical kind of engineering folks and business degree folks with the team that I'm on.
Okay, so I believe that's all the time we actually have for questions. But before we go, we just want to thank everyone for attending. I hope we all learned something new today. And if you have any questions about SLIA or SCOCO, please feel free to ask them. We have directors from both SLIA and SCOCO with us here today, who I'm sure will be happy to talk to you more about the two organizations. If you would like to specifically get in touch with Kimberly or Darren, feel free to add them on LinkedIn. Their profiles will be linked into the chat.
And again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight on our first ever Climate Careers Chat. On behalf of all of SLIA, I would like to thank Kimberly and Darren for their amazing presentations, as well as the audience for making all of this possible. We hope you all join us again next time. Stay tuned to our SLIA social media and SCOCO social media to know when the next Climate Careers Chat will be.
Thank you again to all our attendees and panelists for helping make this a successful event. Please feel free to reach out with any questions, concerns, and feedback of our programming today. To stay tuned on upcoming events and to support our team, please follow us on Instagram using the handles displayed and check out Sustainable Contra Costa's website at sustainablecoco.org. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.